Hello, welcome to Dwarven Forge Live. This is our, what are we going to be calling this thing? Our sculpting series? Our,
Sculpting a Wildlands game
artists
with Elye.
inside the studio, inside the anvil.
I thought sculpting
Inside
Samurai
the-
was cool, but inside the
Hot
anvil was
embers.
also cool. Ooh.
Yeah, molten lava in your eye. So this is we are tonight. We're here with Eli Alexander,
Hey everybody.
and we're going to be sculpting a brand new piece that will be in the Wildlands. Nobody's seen this thing yet, and Eli's going to talk us through what the heck he's doing. I'm going to ask him some questions. You guys are going to ask us some questions. We're going to do a giveaway at some point, surprise giveaway, and we'll talk about chickens. So,
Yeah, totally.
so Eli, what do you got on your desk here?
Right,
Actually, why don't you first tell everybody who you are and what's your deal?
Okay, yeah. So, hi everyone. I'm Eli Alexander. I'm one of the two lead sculptors here at Dwarven Forge, along with Nina Heath, and I've been sculpting for Dwarven Forge since the City Builder series, and that's what I do now. And
How did you? I'm already jumping into it.
Yeah,
How did
no,
you
no.
get here? Like, what
how did I
you,
get here? Okay. Well,
you grew up sculpting from age 2, right? That was,
pretty much, no. No, I grew up loving fantastical things and wanting to create sculpted creatures and landscapes and so on from a very young age. The same little monsters that Gary Gygax used for the Rust Monster and the Bullet and so forth. I got those out of a jar at a gift shop in a museum when I was like 5.
what
And
museum?
I think it was the Natural History Museum at Harvard, actually. And
A big collection of D&D monsters.
weirdly enough, yeah, you know, I'm sure they had real animals too, but of course I went for the strange stuff as well.
You ended up at Harvard too, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah, so I was trained as an English major, which is of course why I'm now a sculptor. Yeah, so I came here by a roundabout path. Sculpting began as a hobby for me. I'm a self-trained artist. I was always doing visual arts of many sorts from a very young age. I spent hours and hours and hours drawing. It was my favorite thing to do when I was a kid. And I did do a little bit of sculpting. My mom was an art teacher. She had a kiln, and I did some clay stuff. So I still have some funny mugs I made when I was a kid. And
Wait, can
things
you
like that.
can you share some pictures? Like, we need to see that and the ferocious dragon costume.
Yes, I'm working on the dragon. Yes, there's a.
Do you have your like early some of your?
I don't know if I have I have some of the mugs. I have some of the mugs I made when I was probably about 12, and I made a set of them for my grandparents. They're like, like coffee mugs, but with big like grinning mouths on them, with grinning teeth.
What?
And I have this fairly awful set of salt and pepper shakers I made when I was even younger. I was probably like, I don't know, 8, and they're actually like gnomes or dwarves. They're like these little squat bearded guys, but they're pretty lumpy and whatever. But whatever.
I'll trade you. I'll bring in picture. I'll bring in. I have a couple of things. Probably the first and last time I sculpted, I made some things out of like sculpting when I was age.
Right.
I have a Tyrannosaurus Rex. It's a cat. It's like
Cool.
a Catosaurus Rex.
Catosaurus, nice.
And a Triceratops.
Yeah, and I actually made some little clay creatures too, to design to go with those little plastic monsters I mentioned earlier.
So you were making minis.
I
at
was
age 6.
making minis. Probably not 6. I probably made those when I was about 10 or 12, and cast them in the kiln. And they were fun, but of course they were clay, so you drop them on the floor and the arm breaks off. And
You weren't casting Dwarvenite at
I was
age
not
8?
casting Dwarvenite, no. So for many years, the sculpting side of my interest was just an interest and kind of a thing I'd mess around with once in a while. I carved a cat's face to go up in the eave under the roof of my house. I built my own house because what I actually did for a living for many years after college was a carpenter, because that's what most English majors do. And
Or wait tables.
yeah. Anyways, yeah. So, and among the houses I built was my own house. And I had a beloved cat who had passed away, and I decided the spirit animal for the house was going to be a cat. And so I carved a cat's face in a block of cedar, and that went up under the eaves of the house. And so things like that. I was always kind of tinkering with stuff. But
So you have to get us a picture of that, the cat's face.
yeah. Okay. We have to make let me make a list. Here.
Mace. Mace is going to make a list.
I'll make a list of all the things you need to bring.
And then
Maybe we'll give one
next
away.
time I'll spend the entire time I'm here just like
Showing
photos. And, yeah. Okay, so and I was also very much a game enthusiast from my youngest days. when I was just about, not quite 8, I think. I went over to my best friend's house. His dad had just got him some D&D books. This was first edition back in the day, and we played D&D, and that seemed super awesome. And I came home, told my parents all about it, and then they went out to the store. They were thinking of getting me some for my birthday. So yeah, that must have been right before I turned 8. Yeah, and then my mom, back when Dungeons and Dragons was this weird edgy thing, and I was a little boy, and my mom's she said, Eli, we don't think some of this is appropriate for you. There was a succubus in the monster manual, which every 8-year-old boy thinks is pretty cool, but his mom probably isn't cool about. And so, but anyways, my response was, oh, that's okay. I'm making my own game anyways. I decided I was going to make A&A, which was action and adventures, and that was my first role playing.
It comes before D&D in the
yeah,
game.
It's actually older, technically. Yeah. Gygax stole it off from me. But no, seriously. I just, whenever I like something, I want to do it. I don't want to just borrow it. I want to create my own version of it. So that's what I did. I made my own little role playing game and played that with my brother and my friends for years, and also played a little D&D here and there. It sneaks in. I played various other games, of course. I like the Palladium games. I played Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I played Robotech. I played
TMNT and Other Strangeness was awesome.
That was fun. Yeah. And made various other role-playing games and so on. I never really got into the minis because at that point there was a lot less available, and they were the metal minis. My friend had some of the cool metal ones, but I didn't have much of a budget at that age, and always wanted them. I really, really wanted them, but I didn't have them.
They were, my parents were worried they were made of lead.
Yeah.
And they were like, are you sure you guys should be playing with lead toys?
Right.
Like, isn't that a thing?
Yeah. So I was in frets about that, and it just seemed like it was out of my price range at age 10, so be it. But yeah, so secretly there was this kind of ongoing desire to have miniatures, terrain. I remember seeing early Dwarven Forge terrain way back when I was in college, and thinking, "Whoa, that's awesome!"
Dragon magazine.
Yeah, Dragon magazine, all that stuff. And
there's the full page ads like in Dragon.
Yeah, did I see a dragon? I might have. Yeah, because I wasn't looking at the internet back then. It wasn't really.
There was no internet.
There was no internet. So and I know I've been aware of it for a long time, but back in the resin days. So anyways, years went by, and I kind of decided. It actually, ironically, this started as my really doing sculpting. Started as me wanting a simplified role-playing game. I was trying to create something that would... Yeah, I know. This is completely ass backwards. So I was like, I want to do something where I don't really need a DM, because I always ended up being the DM. And I was like, no, I just want something that sort of has its own simple rules, and everyone can be a player, and it'll just be like a tabletop thing. So I made took a big sheet of cardboard, marked it out in a grid, and I made some little pieces of wood. Being a carpenter, I had plenty of wood lying around. Made a bunch of wood stuff so I could make a kind of a maze, and came up with a simple system of rules for how you'd place treasure and creatures and stuff around, and then you just venture into the maze.
I mean, there's people who've made livings making board games like this.
Oh yeah.
This
No, and I always loved board games too. I mean, I was constantly making board games when I was a kid. So I was kind of looking for a hybrid,
Yeah.
And so that was fun. But then I was like, well, obviously we want our PCs. So we need to get a few minis for that. And I'm like, wouldn't it be fun if there were some monsters that looked cool?
Next thing you know.
And next thing you knew, yeah. And, and then, these little square wooden things are kind of lame. So wouldn't it be more fun to have some real terrain? So I was messing around with sculpting stuff. And, before long, I noticed Dwarven Forge's first Kickstarter. And I was like, hey, I can afford that stuff. I'm going to buy a bunch of that, and then I'll really build the dungeon, and that's going to look awesome. And,
well, it was the first time it was felt accessibly priced.
Right, exactly.
You got a lot.
You got a lot. Yeah, I got 5 sets, I think.
Yeah.
And you can cover a table with that, and that was awesome. But of course, I wanted more stuff, and being me, I wanted to try my own, stuff that would go with it, all the things that didn't exist. So. I was on the Dwarven Forge forums, and I was posting pictures of things I was sculpting. I was making all these big gates and entrances to the dungeon. And
Enter the dungeon.
Yes, and so
Enter the Dungeon. Dragon.
Yes, Enter the Dungeon became the name of my own little Kickstarter because some people on the forums were saying, hey, why don't you sell these? And I thought, yeah, why not? I'll do a Kickstarter. that seems to work. And so I did, and it did work. I was kind of surprised at how successful it was, so I was frantically casting, sculpting, casting, painting, shipping all my own terrain by myself, with a little help from my long-suffering wife, Eva, who I don't know if she's watching this right now, but I love you and you're awesome, and thank you for painting so many of those little hinges.
Somebody's saying that they love your temple front, by the way.
Right. Yes, the temple was one of the, maybe the greatest hit of that whole series. I think that was one of my best pieces from that.
Those double doors were really versatile, useful, and smart.
Yeah, I was trying to make everything modular and just kind of following what I thought was so cool about Dwarven Forge, and during that process, Stefan, the founder of Dwarven Forge, got in touch with me, and he would back the Kickstarter and said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing some sculpting as part of this?" And I said, "Hell yeah!" So I came down to New York, met Nate and Nina, who were both, also newly involved.
Hey, look at me one more time. I'm gonna do a picture for Twitch. I mean, what is it? Twitter.
I have a pretty good photo of Eli wielding bananas. If you want that one.
All right. Have you used that yet?
No, I sent it to the social group. I thought so too, but then we found a different one with beans.
Yeah.
It's banana or beans, Eli.
Did you know that bananas are a berry?
I did.
It's our staple diet.
Do you know that berries are a bean?
Wait, sorry, that picture didn't work.
Anyways, sorry. Where are we?
Wait, Mace is smile. Mace smile. No, right. Eli, you have to look at here.
Okay.
That's all we ever eat around here.
Okay.
The bathroom's unbearable.
So, anyways, I came down to New York. I started jumped in sort of head first, making roofs and walls for the city builder system, and kind of never looked back. I finished up my own Kickstarter, and I've been sculpting pretty much full time for Dwarven Forge ever since, and loving it. And so maybe we should get to some of the actual sculpting now. Yeah. So.
All right, so what's this thing that I put on your desk?
Okay, so, what you kind of put on my desk was this thing, which is where the sculpts start, which is a mock. Nate creates these cool foam concept pieces to figure out the geometry and to sort of explore shapes and see what will be interesting for each new set we're doing. And this new set is the Wildlands. Mm-hmm.
The purpose is it's fast and easy to work in. Foam is like, I can figure out the geometry quickly before you log in like a week working on this damn lump with spend an hour or two in foam and and figure out, is this thing going to work? How does it fit with the other pieces?
Yeah.
How does it look in the lineup?
Yeah. So, for example, he creates not just this one, but various pieces that might need to fit with it. Let's show that. So,
and a lot of iterations,
for example,
too.
this fits this way. It might also fit this way. Various and
Well, we interrupt. We're gonna do a life cycle of a piece starting next week.
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
10 a.m.
So next Wednesday, I don't even know what it's gonna be yet. I'm gonna do a mock-up. I'm gonna sketch and a mock-up a brand new piece live on Twitch, and then we'll feed that piece like the following week or the week after to Nina to sculpt, and then whenever we get a casting back, we'll pass that down to Aaron to paint, so you guys can watch the progression of a piece going from concept to finish.
So
back on target.
Yeah. So
really quick in the chat, I don't know if you remember from Gen Con, but Aurora is actually, she has a question. She wants to know what the very first.
Hey, Aurora.
Wait, first tell the audience. Tell the audience who Aurora is. And
Aurora is this awesome sculptor. I believe she's 6 years old.
No, she's like
9.
12.
12.
I think she's maybe.
She's
13,
young, but
13
she was very supportive. She came over and she actually gave us an outhouse for our booth that she sculpted herself. Her father Shane is on the stream commenting, but
she's awesome. She's the future.
Yes.
Yeah, she really is.
So delighted.
She's
to
13
have
in
you
August.
Here. And what's that?
13 in August.
13. Okay, yeah. See, 12. So did you have a question?
She wanted to know what the first sculpt for Dwarven Forge you made was.
The first sculpt I made for Dwarven Forge was the tiled roof, the Tudor roof, and the city builder system.
It's a lot of tiles on that.
Yeah. Yep. I came in at that point. There was the plan was to do a castle as well as a city.
You remember that?
Yes, and there was this whole castle design that ended up getting completely scrapped from that Kickstarter. And so, well, a lot of people were working on that. I came in and they're like, "Hey, Eli, I want to do buildings and roofs and things." So I worked on the Tudor roof and then the slate roof, and then I did most of the walls. Yeah. So this was my first piece for Dwarven Forge.
Wait, put it back in here.
Sorry. Whoops. Yeah. Right. First piece for Dwarven Forge. Slate roof. Sort of, kind of a classic European style. Clay tiles. And some interesting curved wooden beams and a little bit of a Valorian star here. I think that was maybe the first time this design appeared that kind of became a Valorian symbol. So it was just a decoration up on the eaves of the roof. That's where the cat is on my house. So it's kind of a place of pride on a building. So anyways, yeah, that's my first Dwarven Forge sculpt.
There's also a lot of buzz about the Hellgate here, but I assume we're going to get to that later. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly pop in and talk about any sort of things. But okay, so back to what we're doing right now. So
basically, I dropped a big hunk of foam on your desk.
Nate drops a hunk of foam on my desk, and this is already the product of lots of brainstorming, lots of kind of group discussion about what we're gonna do and how to best.
Yeah, and this is an iteration. You did a couple versions, and you get here. Like, there's a long process before we get to this hunk of foam.
But once we decide, all right, this thing's ready to sculpt, it makes sense, it's interesting, it works with the overall concept of the set, then I get it, and then my job is to translate this into a finished piece in clay. And I get, in addition to the mock, I get further help, which is generally, sometimes I do the armatures from scratch, but usually it's Toby or Mace or Casey, or it could be any number of people here in the office. Aaron has done mocks. Or not mocks, armatures, and what that is it's essentially a lump of clay about this size, about this shape, usually with something inside it, and it's going to be on a piece of wood. And this is not an armature. This is the sculpt I'm going to do for you, because we're going to use the magic of pre-recorded time lapse.
What? Dark wizardry?
So I don't have what this looked like before I spent about 4.5 hours on it, but this is what we're going to get to, and then I'm going to take this further along, closer to being a finished piece.
So let's talk about the challenges.
Yeah.
So of this, so this piece in particular,
this is kind of a curveball.
What do you call it? It's a hunk of geometry.
Yeah, it's a hunk of geometry.
Right, sometimes you get a thing that's like, okay, this is like going to be a pretty, like the Stairway to Violence. You're like, okay,
right,
this is like a beautiful. Actually,
right, yeah. So the more engineering involved, the trickier a piece is, because you have to be very precise as well as being creative and decorative and worrying about the aesthetics. And this piece has several things going on. You have the Stairway to Violence. Yeah.
When you get a thing like this, you're like, oh, okay, I can make.
Yeah.
Hold that up a little higher.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I can make this pretty. This is easy.
This is exciting. Although this one, this one had a lot. I spent a lot of time on this guy because we got all these stalactites and stalagmites, and I wanted them to make sense
in multiple
locations.
Yeah.
So depending how you twist it, they're still dripping on. Not every possible iteration, but like a lot of them. The flowstone actually
connects. Like in a logical way.
So yeah, that might not be the best example of an easy one, but it definitely is more free floating. Yeah, it's very yeah.
This thing is ugly.
Like kind of it's honestly it's gonna do some great stuff for us, but it is a bit of a clunker. We need a 45-degree angle here to shift from this to this. We've got two different points where we're going to be attaching.
To the camera,
So here we need to have access for attaching bridges.
And the red diagonal stripes, that means it has to be perfectly flat.
Yeah, so Nate has worked out this whole vocabulary of signs and markings and things. We've got specific measurements for height we want to hit.
Those little millimeters on the
so again,
the bottom.
These markings here, further notes here. We've got our SKU numbers. On this side, here we have a tree stump. So we'll be able to attach forest trees to, and that has to be a specific height because of cool pieces we have that we'll be working with the height of the trees. Ooh. So semi-beam. And here's another bridge attachment at a different level, and then these red points are setting up we're gonna
other
hide
attachment.
There are other attachment points for some other fun geometry. We're working with some new stuff that's going to be forthcoming in Wildlands that I won't talk about just yet, but rest assured it's going to be cool. So
and
there's
also,
all of that.
Also, this has to.
Then we have this right here. Yep. Yeah, we're not done yet. So then this shape here needs to work with other mocks, including this thing, which Nate has also prepared. And this is going to be a kind of a craggy bit of mountain stone.
And this guy, you have to fit a 32.
We have to be able to fit not only 28 but like 32 millimeter bases for wargamers who might want to use this stuff. So we need a little more space.
You hear that, rabbit burner?
Yeah. Yeah, that's nice. Hamster did. Yeah. Hamster painted that one. Nice job. Yeah. So we've got concerns about having flat bits in certain places.
So it's like it's a whole bunch of constraints in one place.
Whole bunch of constraints
and some wacky geometry and some bits.
Yeah. So the trick is to take this and make something that's gonna fulfill all those functions, but also look cool, so people will want it on a table. So that's my job. So I think probably from here we can zoom into what we did is I took the armature, which became this,
the big block,
and worked on it for part of a day, and kind of tackled the geometry side of things, and then sort of the first phase of pushing it beyond that.
So let's go.
So we've got some time lapse, and I'm going to just kind of talk you through what's going on there for a few minutes, and then we'll get back to the live sculpting and I'll do that for you. Okay, so there I'm just kind of comparing the armature that I was given. Someone had done some very preliminary blocking out of the shapes, so checking the 45, making sure that's exact, so that will fit. Then I'm trimming off some bits. I'm double checking that the mock is going to fit there exactly. I'm noting where the bridge bits have to go, and also giving myself a little bit of extra space for the mock to fit in. The other thing is there's a grid, of course, and trying to make sure we can figure out how we want the grid included in the stone. That was something I didn't mention among all the other geometric concerns. Now
there's not enough things to make your job challenging.
Yeah. So now I'm making sure the bridge attachment points are about right. So the flats, they're the right height. Kind of roughing out a bit more of the grid, and just thinking about very rough shapes now. But still, I haven't even really thought about.
What's your approach? What do you do? What do you do first? Like, what's your
so there's definitely kind of a sequence of things, and the first thing I do is and we've slowed it down here because this is the point where I feel like I've pretty much got the basic geometry done, and that's the first thing.
All the measurements are set. The 45 is there.
The 45 is there. Things are flattened. The spacing is prepared for whatever it has to fit with the piece. There even are a couple other pieces that need to fit up against it. Okay, so now from there, the second phase is what I call like justifying the piece, which means thinking about all the things that it had to do and how I'm going to make that feel natural, how I'm going to make that work.
Right, how do we make
there's
this weird 45 degree angle and thing, like how do I make that look real?
Yeah, so right now what I'm doing is trying to make it look less like just a lump with precise angles, and so
to make it a lump with less precise angles.
Right, exactly. So now they made everything super precise. Now I'm going in and messing it all up, but in a way that won't interfere with the function.
Right, that flat 45 degree is still going to stay a flat 45 degree.
So the 45 will still be perfect. There'll still be those holes there, but I'm going to make the holes hidden as best I can. I'm going to tinker with the geometry so that the angle doesn't. Okay, another thing you're noticing me fitting other things up against it, including a stone bridge. I need to make it that look good when it goes on there, and subtle changes in the angles on the piece will definitely make something look more or less natural when it's butted up against it.
Right, and you've got this challenge of these these hard 90 degree angles and all this stuff that you have to try and make look organic.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing we settled on long ago for our stone is it's essentially kind of a natural limestone, which has the benefits of being something that does cleave in interesting ways with sometimes pretty precise faces. So it feels natural, particularly on the horizontal, to have flat areas where characters can stand that might also break up in a way that looks vaguely like a grid. And so working with that is important. The verticals are a little trickier because naturally sedimentary stone wants to split on the horizontal. And it will definitely crack vertically, but it doesn't tend to be as perfect. So
how do you justify the verticals?
So basically, I need to. I mean, it will sometimes, but I need to kind of strike a balance between suggesting the irregularity of it and suggesting points where it looks like it naturally split very sharply. So, for example, one thing I've been doing a bit of here is not so much right now, but okay, yeah, a little bit there. I'm kind of cutting in under the bridge points so that the face you're looking at is not going to be just perfectly vertical. It's going to kind of step in and out. I'm also going to be playing a few tricks, and I'll show you that when we get to the slow point.
And of course, you also have to worry about casting the damn thing, right?
Yes,
like you can't just do unlimited undercuts and
right.
whatever,
Yeah, so there's really
like
kind of a balance between the necessary geometry and the limits of the medium and the reproduction process. If you can't cast it, you can't make it. I mean, we always, because we care about how awesome things look, we always kind of push the limits of where that can go, and sometimes our factory will push back and be like, hey, we can't do that, and you're like, no, you have to.
Well, we push the limit hard.
We push the limits very hard, and which is great from an artist perspective, because it means we can do things that a lot of other places wouldn't even attempt, because they're just like, oh no, that's not, your molds aren't going to work, don't do it. And we'll be like, no, we'll find a way. And sometimes we have to tweak things, certainly, but we push it as far as we can, and the end result is a lot nicer and more naturalistic.
Because it also just gets more like they can do a lot of these things, but it suddenly it becomes
it's more work.
It becomes a 5-part sliding mold, and just the price goes up across the board. So we have to balance like what's the end price going to be for is it worth it?
Okay, so what I've got to now is now that I've got sort of the kind of the rough justification, if you will, I'm also just giving it a rough texturing over the surface, and I'm using a bunch of little homemade tools that have stone texture on them, and also using my couple sort of standby metal tools. And I have a big pile of tools. I have probably hundreds of different things that I occasionally use. There's probably like 4 or 5, which again I can show you when we get done with this phase. That I do like 95% of what I do with, but having the right tool for that other 5% is really important, and so I'm always grabbing little bits and bobs, and it's occasionally it's something kind of nice, but usually it's just a cheap something that I'm like, aha, that's a shape I don't have, and so I'll grab
the cheap
whatever
something.
It may be. I mean, I have crocheting hooks, I have knitting needles, I have bits of chopsticks, I have just like regular needles that I've put little handles on, I have a bunch of different kinds of tweezers, some of which I've modified in certain ways.
Are those dental picks?
My absolute favorite tool is just sort of like a cheap dental pick from like it's like a $10 pack of sculpting tools that you can get on Amazon or anywhere else, it's you don't need a lot of fancy expensive things. I do have a couple very nice. These are like handmade by a smith that Nina knows. Got us some sets of these things that are great. They're kind of like a Taranti.
Tom is amazing.
Tom,
he did when we did the pure dwarvenite video with the smith forging, the dwarven smith forging stuff. He was our blacksmith consultant and figured out how to get sparks fly off the stuff and how to he was like teaching the actor how to be a smith. It was pretty awesome.
Nice. Yeah. So right now I'm going over the whole surface, making sure, kind of alternating between texturing, the rough texturing, and then redefining the shapes, because as you push the texture in, you end up messing up the sort of sharply defined edges.
So you just keep going back and forth.
It's definitely sort of a dance back and forth. Yeah, and then again, once I have something roughed out, looking at it again, did something get smushed the wrong way? You kind of have to pull back and zoom in and pull back and zoom in. There I'm kind of going underneath some of the stuff, and the main goal is at this point just to get it to look pretty much like, it's amazing how much putting texture on it will do for your sense of the final piece. So get it to look close to what the final version will be, and then I can kind of assess again, all right, what does it still need? I'm kind of double checking. That was the tree trunk. You see the little white bit stuck on there. One thing, back when we were getting ready for the Dread Hollow Forest, I sculpted a couple stump toppers, and basically they were pieces that were exactly the right size for our medium and large, or small and large tree.
We did toppers and bottomers.
Yeah, we did toppers and bottomers, and the idea being that anytime we were going to have a tree base and a modular tree above it, the base would get the topper and the tree trunk would get the bottomer. And
so basically all of our trees have the same top and bottom. That last
tiny little bit
is like the same, so they'll line up.
So they'll all work together. Yeah, exactly. And so so I fit that into the tree trunk on here, and then kind of resculpted around it.
So you basically just jam a resin piece onto the clay.
Yeah, I mean I insert a wire into it, so it'll.
So you don't just jam.
I don't just jam it in now. Yeah, but then I have to jam it in and readjust it, and check the height, and futz with it, and so. So I mean, there definitely is some jamming involved. Now I'm kind of tweaking the roots, making sure I've got some some interesting plausible root structure there, hanging off thing. Okay, cool. so there we have
We're
it.
Back to live.
Yeah.
All right, so wait, before you go into the actual piece, does anybody have any questions? Anybody in the studio audience have any questions about what they've seen so far?
Oh, the studio audience.
Yeah, studio audience, live studio audience, and that was like what 4 or 5 hours of sculpting we just watched.
I think it was like 4.5 ish. Yeah.
So I didn't realize at the time, but we actually had another beam during that time lapse that was revealed. Yeah, some of the foam.
Yeah, foam mocks. Yeah.
But I mean, low key, it's low key.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like if you meant the jaggedy thing, do you mean this thing?
No, but
the stone,
well, then we won't talk about what
things,
the thing was.
Don't show them that one.
Yeah.
Well, so what are the questions from the live studio audience here?
Us or the chat?
No, the chat.
Yeah.
The chat. Okay, so
I'd like to make up names for things.
Live studio audience is us though.
Inside, outside, standing wall.
There you go. The Sir Fits-a-Lot.
This is a real name.
Orcs in Space asks, do you ever have to alter an sculpt to accommodate tooling?
To accommodate, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. When I was saying earlier that the factory pushes back sometimes, occasionally they will say, we really don't want to make that thing the way you've done it. Can you please tinker with it? And
there's a tree that Eli sculpted for Wildlands that's outrageously beautiful, and the factory pushed back already. So it's still outrageously beautiful, but you had to do some painful
it's just
tweaking
there was more work involved. But we came to something that seemed to be still workable for them, but still satisfying our aesthetic criteria.
Can't wait to share it.
Yeah. So yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, we have a few. Would doing research in the geology and topography? Is it topography? Yeah. Be a regular part of the ideation of a piece?
I spend a lot of time looking at natural forms. I'm fortunate to live out in the Northwoods. Although I'm here in New York now, usually I'm in northern Vermont, and when I can, I travel to interesting places, usually wild places. Spent a lot of time hiking along coastal cliffs in Great Britain, and also visiting castles and so forth. But yeah, I definitely maybe this is probably a good point actually to talk about what I call the logic of the forms.
Well, I think everybody, the whole team is drawing from as much, right? Look over at Erin's desk when she's painting, and she's got samples of real life things. Or Nina's desk when she's sculpting, she's all the stuff she's printed out. That you can tell when she's doing something really disturbing, when there's just weird dismembered bodies and stuff printed out that are up there.
Well, isn't one of Nina's favorite things to sculpt disturbing?
Weird.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
taking the natural
stuff,
and making it just
great,
just off enough to really make you go, what's wrong with this?
Yeah, and but by the logic of the forms, what I mean is everything in nature has a
Hold that
way.
Up a little higher so you can see it.
has a way that it forms naturally, and just as if you're sculpting a human body, you need to study anatomy. If you're sculpting stone, you need to look at stone and how it works and what makes sense with it, and you need to kind of get to the point where you've almost sort of internalized it, so you can kind of, at least I feel like you can kind of feel what feels right, and you'll know by looking at something like that feels a little off, or that I
feel like you have like sometimes you have a little story behind the thing of like this tree was like this, and then there was a lightning storm that didn't. That's why there's a thing
Absolutely,
here.
This crack is not just a crack; it's a crack because that root went in there.
So let's talk about some of the logic of this piece.
Yeah. Okay. So for this piece, again, the kind of the dance between the logic and the geometry. We've got these two sheer faces, which are kind of from my perspective, the biggest tricks to justify, and we want it to look. I mean, they're still kind of obvious from a top view. From the side angle, I think they don't feel too in your face. I think I'm still gonna tinker with it a little further. But one thing here is, all right. So this is limestone sedimentary rock, which naturally has horizontal striations that are more or less flat. I mean, we keep them fairly flat where we're going to have someone standing on it.
Well, because we want. I mean, at the end of the day, this is for gameplay.
This is for gameplay, and it needs to function that way. Yeah. So that's
we're not replicating nature. We're creating fantasy, gameable terrain that looks cool.
And it's going to be annoying if something doesn't quite fit or whatever.
Oh, and we'll hear all about it.
And we'll hear all about it. Yeah. But on the other hand, if you can keep that and still have it looking really cool, great. So one thing I'm looking at here is, all right, if we've got this sheer face and this sheer face, we want to suggest that this particular bunch of limestone is tending to split on those lines. And fault lines in stone very often go parallel to each other, definitely along kind of the layers of a sedimentary stone, but also to some extent you'll see that in the verticals. And even if you don't always see it, if you suggest that that's typically happening in this one, and you have a pretty straight line here and a pretty straight line here, pretty straight line here, then these other straight lines are going to feel more natural. If everything here were super rounded, and I'm probably going to actually even straighten out this a bit more, then those are going to feel more weird. So you can have the exact same faces, and they'll feel more or less natural depending on what's around them. So that's definitely something I look at.
So let me ask the audience at home, have any of you guys that own Jordan Forge, have you ever looked at the pieces and thought about the logic of like how does the stone, like how does this flow? I bet that no one has ever thought about it. But you feel it.
But yeah, you feel it, and it looks good too. Yeah.
When it to your eye, you're like, oh, this you buy the reality. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Somehow, if the logic is sound, you buy the reality. Has anybody thought about it?
Sir Doobie Brother says cleavage breaks in the stone. Nice.
So there you go.
Yeah. I think you do feel it, and that's what helps set our pieces aside, that we try and put that in there. So that's one thing. I mean, just like looking at all right, I'll start doing a little actual sculpting. Like one thing here, this face still does feel pretty flat. I've got a couple points here I need for bridge attachment that I've marked slightly.
Oh, so and you try and hide those little...
Yes, and so those are going to end up being hidden in some bigger horizontal cracks.
So it's like 3 millimeter holes that need to have a
some kind of obvious dings here, so I won't ever forget about those. But also, we'll be having... Well, we have our existing, we have our existing suspension bridge.
Let me get it.
Oh, yeah. But we also have a mock of a new stone bridge. I don't know if that's the bean.
That is the bean.
We can.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, so.
Do you want to get a few more questions?
Okay. Well, Nate's grabbing the thing. Okay, so since we love to make stuff backwards compatible.
Well, we want you guys to, if you already bought a bridge last year or 2 years ago, we want you to be able to work as many things as possible into this.
It'll be great to be able to attach that bridge there.
Hold that up for let's get the comments section fired up for a second.
Yeah.
Let's get them there.
Yeah, so
they're already excited.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. Okay. No, so that's going to be happening there. So that needs to work. But the stone here, although it can't stick out. I can go in with it a little bit, might make the bridge feel a little more precarious, and I can't do it too far so it would mess up where the pegs go. But I can play with that a little bit. So I'm going to play with that a little bit more right now. I'm going to take and just drop this bit down here, I think.
Somebody was asking how far out with the bridge you could go before it's not that supportive.
I think actually, yesterday we did
4 segments.
4 segments with the bridge, but actually on this you'll be able to do at least 6 because I had 6 that was sticking together just fine.
It was just
it was lifting the ends up, but you're not gonna lift this thing because this thing's gonna weigh way more.
We should put some tungsten in there.
We could tungsten. That's an innovation that the factory probably was mad about. But
or
we
depleted uranium, whatever.
But we did add actual tungsten to the ends of our existing suspension bridge. So that's gonna work. So I'm just taking this down here a little bit. That's just gonna add a little, like from certain angles when you look at it, it's gonna feel a bit more natural. You know, there's nothing wrong with having a flat plane. You do see those in nature, but you know, certainly in limestone areas, but something that drops down, you're going to be like, it's dropped in a bit.
Well, it's funny when you see a thing in nature, because you know it's real, you just accept it. When you see a thing that's a miniature facsimile of nature, you're like, I don't know, that wouldn't happen.
Yeah. The thing I'm going to do is these rocks stick up a bit, so I can go back from the edge more with those. So I'll take a little bit of that off. The other thing is we've got these kind of neat corners here, and we don't really need those. I don't want it to look too flat here because when we attach something stone to it here, I don't want it to look like a right angle. But I also don't want it to be just too perfect any particular way. So I think what I'm going to do, and there's sort of a sense of symmetry that maybe is too much there. So I think I'm going to actually chop into which side? You know what? I think I'm going to actually build, since symmetry again can work against you in like there's patterns, but they don't tend to be super symmetrical in like limestone. So I'm going to actually raise this up here a bit so it doesn't echo this corner. And then I'm going to chop in here a little more.
And one of the workflows that we like to do here a lot that helps break up things being too clean or too symmetrical is bounce pieces around between people. So, you work on this for a day and bounce it over to Nina, and she like adds a little of her chaos to your order, and then bounce back to you, and you bring a little of your order back to the chaos, and it becomes this really sort of layers of ideas upon each other that gives you an end result that's stronger.
It's always good to have something to work against, really. Like actually, one fun metaphor as an English major for sculpting a piece like this, I think, is thinking it kind of like writing a formal poem, like you're writing a sonnet. You have a strict form you need to keep to. You know, the geometry is the your iambic pentameter, and the rhymes are these things that have to go in here, and then the language is the logic of the stone, and how do you make that work, and how do you make it still interesting and unique despite it fitting into a strict form. So now, all right,
so you're saying this is poetry?
Yeah. Well, I like to think so.
Yeah, visual.
That's the goal. Yeah. So we're gonna take a little more out here. We're gonna go down under. I think I'm gonna cut in a little more on this side over here. I think that'll feel interesting.
Are you cool to take a few more questions?
I can totally take more questions, yeah.
Awesome. So Finley Shards wants to know, at what point do you test the work against the other pieces in geometry that you want them to work with?
Well, I definitely already did some of that with, particularly in the very first phase where I was checking with the other mocks. Ideally, like for example, this is another mock of a piece that we want to fit against it, so checking that that's still working, checking with bridges, checking with this other piece that needs to fit on here, and making sure that that's going to work well. And so I do it especially at the start when I'm making sure the geometry is right on, kind of the engineering end of things. And then I'll revisit it from time to time.
It does drift a little sometimes.
It inevitably, like putting a little texture on something, and suddenly it can be a little weird. So another thing I'm noticing now. Now here's a little puzzle I've set myself. I've got this tree here, and this root is holding this tree, so it's strained. There's probably a lot of weight coming out from that. So that makes it kind of naturally a hard long line according to the logic of the tree here, if you will. But it also makes this a long straight line that doesn't really need to be. Now, another thing about this is I've got two very stark sides here. I don't want all the other sides to be too irregular, because then it's going to make the stark sides look more
extra
stark. So it's actually good to have some other straight lines that don't have to be there, but that feel justified by the way the stone is. So this strong root, maybe that's probably a good thing actually. But what I don't want it to do is be too perfectly echoed by the stones above. So I think I'm going to change the planes there just a little.
While you're playing in Root World, can we get more like? I feel like that's the exciting.
We
need more roots in there. Like this is.
Okay. Well, let me just.
Because this is we don't get a lot of chance. Like one of the things this stump came. This was a Toby. We had another mock that preceded this that had a weird thing that kind of vaguely looked like a stump, and he's like, "Why don't you just put a hole in that, make this cool stump off the side?" And that was sort of where the genesis of this came. So the idea here was that it's like really fun, right? You see those cool things where there's that that tree's been there for 100 years and everything's eroded and it's the only thing holding on.
And that's what you're kind of getting into the aesthetics of what makes this a fun piece. So
let's go nuts with those roots.
I mean, definitely the roots are going to want to go in here. Now we need to. The trick is we need to keep this flat, of course, because you want that thing to sit there.
But we can go down.
But we can go down, and I think what I would do for that is I'm gonna this rock right here can get lowered and shrunk, and that will give us a little space for more rootage.
There's a question on the stream.
Yep.
The card of live streams. What do you do if you accidentally drop a sculpt?
Oh boy.
What do we do, Nate?
We don't do it again.
Nate says,
I
dropped this.
Castle Builder, I dropped something Eli was working on. I don't remember what it was. That was the last time I ever dropped a sculpt.
Yeah, it happens.
You hold it with two hands and you hope that someone else drops it.
Yeah. Generally, I mean, the good thing about Monster Clay is, it's fairly forgiving. I mean, you can smush it, but you can unsmush it and you can resculpt whatever it was.
It's pretty firm too. In the grain.
Yeah, you're probably not going to destroy the whole thing. If you drop this thing, that's gonna get mushed, but this spot's fine.
Well, we had one of the Dread Hollow pieces when it went in shipping to the factory. Somehow it got some pressure on the top, and one of the those little resin stump toppers got jammed down, and it pushed out the whole stump, which was a real mess.
I was just talking about wanting to tinker with these angles, and what I'm thinking is a stump that crawls up.
Yes,
up along the side here. That's gonna change. I'll maintain this nice strong line here I like from this root, but I'll change how this is looking, and I'll give us something fun to look at up the whole side of this.
Invade that. Invade the stone.
Invading rootage here. I still need to do some more integrating, which I'm guessing the amount I'm talking rather than focusing, I'm probably not going to get anywhere near finishing this piece tonight, but I'm going to touch on at least a bunch of the fun elements of how we make it work. So that's the main thing. So sometimes it's just simply a matter of starting out by rolling yourself out a little snake of clay.
Is there a question from the...
Well, first a compliment. The Chthonian, I believe it's pronounced son from the forums, Chthonian or Chthonian, says that you really bring your work is incredible, and he can listen to you explain how to bring realism to the pieces all day. Noob Annie Dust wants to know if there's ever been a dwarven frog released, which I obviously was like, we have to ask.
A frog
there are several frogs in the
piece.
The cave entrance. There is a frog. There is a toad right on this piece here. The spirit tree. Let me get this in screen.
Just hold it where you normally sculpt.
Yeah, sorry. I put a little toad right here on this guy. And there's a couple frogs in the upcoming swamp. I know I've done a couple, and Nina might have put a frog somewhere.
We don't have like a froghemoth or anything.
We don't have a froghemoth, but yeah. So those are dwarven frogs, albeit modest ones.
And Azure Cobalt says, how does using LEDs change the sculpting process?
You have to be aware of the internal space, and so we have to be very particular about getting our electronics ahead of time and knowing exactly how big they are and how much space they need around them to make the cavity work.
And thinking about it run, like if your battery is going to be here and your LED's here, like what, how is the power going to run from A to B, and what's it going to look like? One of the things, funny enough, like on the Stairway to Violence, this thing, like we made the choice, what is that thing? right? Like we put the LED socket here so that it would create this really nice underlight. It would actually light the piece and have this really neat.
Yeah, because that's something we don't get to do with a lot of things that don't have the overhang. So that was that was
like
definitely
a really cool way to you have to think about how it's going to, what the illumination will affect the piece. How do you think about the paint while you're sculpting?
Definitely, depending on the piece, but for example, quick chance to jump over to these bits that are jutting up here. They're part of a sort of a new form of stone we're adding in our mountains here, and something that's conceptually a bit more like obsidian, but something that's clearly magical. This is not probably a natural inclusion, but something that's there due to some fantastical influence.
Tell them what our working title is and see if they like it.
We're thinking Wyvernium, since
just leave it at Wyvernium.
Yeah. All right.
Anybody in? Who's in for Wyvernium?
Yeah.
Mace is in. Okay. How about the
I was just kind of working out textures on that.
Crystal Soley says she's also in.
Oh,
I wonder why.
Can we just
Crystal.
Can we just share all of our love with Crystal?
A lot of ins.
Crystal just might have just sent over a piece of art today that was super exciting. Let's say no more. Okay.
Yeah. Working on the textures on these are not done yet, but I'll do a bit of that right now.
We also have. There's some weirdo named Nina that wants to know if you were a hot dog, would you eat yourself?
Only with a lot of
ban
mustard.
this, Nina.
Yeah, I need a banner. We really need more moderators on this chat if we get comments like that.
She sounds like a Reddit troll.
But would you, though? Would you eat yourself?
I already answered that. Only with a lot of mustard.
Okay.
What about purple ketchup?
Is there purple ketchup?
There used to be.
You can color it anything you want.
Is there
That's
Crystal
true,
Pepsi?
Would you eat purple mayo?
Yeah, what about black mayo? Would black mayo?
No, it's not the color. It's just I hate
thought
white
it was like
creamy
any
things.
whites.
I hate white creamy things, but it's not because the color. It's just because of they are. Because they exist. Like mayo is like just the epitome of evil.
I feel like you have good psychological reasonings for it from your childhood.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about
it. But it's complicated. Yeah, it's complicated.
It's a banana incident. It was like, I don't know. So
what I'm doing here is this stone has sort of faceted faces, and they are, say that quickly 12 times.
Faceted faces.
Fairly faceted faces. Which look great dry brushed, so you can kind of bring out the edges, and then they have a more subtle texture on each face that is kind of like a fantastical take on obsidian in particular. And again, it's fantastical, so it's not a strictly natural thing, but we're still trying to give it a logic, so that it has a particular.
Can that thing get higher?
Can that thing get higher?
Like it just feels like it wants. I don't know.
And I was just trying to keep these
it wasn't
subtle.
Very high. It should have been higher. Like it just should be.
Well,
it like if we're gonna do it, let's just commit. Let's go.
Okay, I didn't want it to interfere too much if someone's building this way with.
No, they're not building that way. You guys are not allowed to build that way.
Okay. All right. Nate always goes for the danger.
And then I regret it. Well, the danger is one of our guiding principles. It should be precarious and sharp.
And I also I was seeking a balance because see, I've got a little one here, one here, one here, and I can go a little higher with this, and it'll be okay. Danger. You know, I could have if someone had asked me, bet on the thing that Nate's gonna ask you to do.
Would it be make the sharp thing higher and sharper?
Yeah, make the sharp thing higher and sharper. I'm gonna argue to keep this one down here though because I like the composition. Composing the piece is very important. Just like partly it's sort of justifying things and just figuring out the logic, but partly it's just looking for that aesthetic harmony. What's gonna feel, and we have a hole in here that we need to not mess up because that's gonna provide very useful options down the line. But I think
Michelle's fingers bled from she was making the thorns so sharp on the
green
the
stuff thorns.
Stone,
you can definitely hurt yourself on that.
Sharper. She's like,
I remember I was sculpting something not too long ago that was I was poking holes in my finger. I can't remember what it was, but
does Wyvernium suggest the existence of griffinite?
Oh. Who said this?
This was a Zircobalt.
Zircobolts.
He won a prize, I think.
Yeah.
Is that somewhere between a
The other
zircon
day,
and
he's
a...
definitely been on the stream.
We're gonna give a giveaway.
Oh yeah.
Away.
Oh, we forgot to completely mention. Yeah, we completely forgot to mention
I
the
mentioned
giveaway.
at the beginning.
Yeah, he did.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
What
keep up,
we missing
Chris.
So we have got our friends at Norse Foundry gave us a bunch of their miniatures, adventurers and adversaries miniatures. So they're modular miniatures, so you can take the arms off and customize what's there. So if you're the dragonborn fighter, you put the two-handed sword on, or the sword and the shield. Or if you're the bard, you can put the lute on. Or if you're I don't remember what, there's like a spell casting one. There's a whole bunch. There's 2 different heads for each mini, and there's a bunch of different arms, and you can just glue them in, or you can attach little tiny magnets if you're really feeling ambitious. But we have 12 different ones or something.
We got a good number of them.
I haven't looked through them yet, but they definitely are beautiful. I mean, I've looked at a few of them, so I can say they're definitely beautiful, but I haven't looked at all of them yet. So.
There's a turtle, there's a whole
definitely
variety.
a very nice looking dragonborn.
Also have a Kickstarter going on right now.
Yeah, Adventures and Adversaries 2.
2 Kickstarters right
now?
No,
it's called Adventures and Adversaries 2.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And people will notice a bunch of really beautiful hand-sculpted terrain creating the scenes in which these miniatures are photographed in. I wonder who could have made that terrain.
Who could have?
Do you think there's a logic to that?
Eli, did you do it?
I actually have to go look at the Kickstarter.
It's a
which I will.
It's a Griffin Tamer production.
Griffin Tamer Productions. They have a Kickstarter going right now for another batch of these things, and they're super cool. And we're gonna give out a dozen or whatever we have, one of each of the from not from the new one, from their first one. We'll give one of each, which is, I don't know, either 10 or 12 different things we'll give to one lucky winner. We should do that. What time should we do that?
At the end.
At the end?
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to keep them on their toes.
Right, this is a tip for
We're keeping them on their
whoever else
toes.
is following what I'm actually doing here. I'm doing some vertical line, just sort of a technique thing. Vertical lines through the new clay I've added and the old clay I added it to. That's going to tend to blend the 2 parts together. For something that's poking out like this, I don't want it to get bumped and break off because there's too much of an actual fault line in the clay underneath. So that helps blend the 2 layers together.
Do you do anything to stop air bubbles?
Smush it together good and hard. I mean,
because we've had a few.
Every once in a while there was something like that. Yeah,
and
I do the place I notice it most is often the armatures when they're put together quickly when they're warm. Sometimes there's soft spots under the base, so I always try and go around and kind of shove into that.
Sort of like when the dentist is checking your teeth for cavities, they're shoving the metal in there.
I mean, the fact that I'm going over this whole thing, pushing on it with a texture tool, generally reveals things. So occasionally I do find things, and I try and go in and find any holes and pack some stuff in there. It is a bit like dental work, and this is my favorite tool. I was saying I was going to
tool.
Yeah, which is it looks very much like a dental tool. It was part of a
lower.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. This. It was part of just like a cheapo, I think it was under $10 set of sculpting tools. But I particularly like this end. The angle on it is real nice for the wrist. You can get in all kinds of places. And then this is good for making some of the basic lines and stonework. So depending what I'm doing, this is usually my primary tool. Sometimes I don't even touch it for different sorts of things. But for something like this, it's great.
Perfect.
Perfect tool.
We're getting dangerously close to you having to do the splits.
Oh boy!
Just so you know.
Has everybody in the studio audience there? Has everybody watched the Kickstarter video for Dungeon of Doom? Where there's Eli does splits across a hammered game table full of terrain. While wielding a sword.
While waving a sword. Yeah, I was.
Oh, maybe it was Caverns Deep. No, it was. I don't know. Studio audience, let us know. Wait, I think it was Dungeon of Doom.
Yeah.
Right?
Gosh, I can't remember.
I don't know. But you're wearing your Wilderforge mantle, wielding a sword, doing splits over a hammered game table full of terrain. Yeah. And we made you do multiple takes. That was I was like,
all right, Eli, get up there and do the splits for 20 minutes while we figure out the best thing.
Yeah. It was pretty. I don't know how we're gonna top that.
Well, we're not going to top it right now, that's for sure. I'm not doing this out in space. It's one of those, it was originally a Jean-Claude Van Damme thing that,
We're going to top it by accidentally setting you on fire.
I did martial arts for many years, so I'm fairly flexible. I can do some of those sorts of things, but sometimes I regret them.
So we know that these pieces can hold 6 bridges, but can they hold you doing the splits between them?
Ooh, that would be painful. Look at that sharp, the way Vermium.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna put my angles. If it were made of dwarvenite, I'm sure it would support me, but it would probably like take out my Achilles tendon. So.
I stepped on a piece the other day. My kids play with dwarvenite and then leave it strewn around like caltrops. And what did I step on that was just brutally sharp? There's something from Caverns Deep. I've stood on that thing as a oof. Yeah. No, there was something from Caverns Deep.
Actually, that's what I was poking holes with when I was painting one of those.
Yeah, that thing's still sharp, even dwarvenite. That is like, whew.
Ooh, Knight of Phoenix wants to know where the blooper reel is if you had to do multiple takes on it.
He never biffed it. There's no real blooper there.
There's just a lot of different versions of it with me being like, all right, I'll wave the sword this way.
Scream louder.
Most of it was like, because it starts out with me moving a mini, and so it's like, how is my hand gonna do the mini? Yeah. And then we pan back to me yelling.
Yeah, the splits were great. It was the continuity of the hand to the splits. That was a good one. Yeah, does anybody in the comments have any ideas for the Wildlands video? What we should do? Any requests? Any stunts that they want Eli to do?
Yeah.
Can you do a backflip?
I used to be able to sort of do a backflip. I would not try that on camera now.
Let's roll the camera.
Because I kind of need these wrists intact.
Yeah.
Film Wildlands in Vermont in spring. In a swamp. Sorry, I read that wrong.
In a swamp. Vermont. In a swamp.
Critical Role crew. A barrel roll? Do a barrel roll as another person. You gotta learn how to do a barrel roll, Eli.
I mean, I can do all sorts of rolls.
Speaking of swamps, you were explaining the 4 different types of wetlands.
Oh yeah.
Say a swamp, a bog, a fen, and a marsh.
Yes.
What's the difference?
Okay, so a marsh is a wetland that has basically is continuously inundated with water, like a tidal marsh. The tide comes in, goes out, or alongside a river, there's water flowing through it all the time. Tends to be probably the wettest kind of wetland. So that's kind of I'll keep it simple. A swamp is a wetland with woody plants, so it's got trees. Tends to be maybe the least wet. There's at least some like hummocks where you can stand where trees can grow. A bog is a wetland that has it's essentially fed by precipitation, not like a river. It generally has no outflow. It's usually like just kind of
like a bowl,
a big bowl in the ground that doesn't. Yeah, and they tend to be very acidic. They produce peat, sphagnum moss and other things will just kind of accumulate for thousands of years there. They find lots of amazing old things sunken in bogs. They found skeletons of primordial humans and mammoth bones and all kinds of, because stuff gets preserved as well. So like it's so acidic that a lot of bacterial activity doesn't go on there. So things will just last for centuries in bogs. And then finally a fen is a peat producing wetland that's not a bog, essentially one that does have water but that isn't fed by precipitation. They might have like rivers flowing through it, but it moves slowly enough that peat accumulates, so you still get that kind of
the presence of peat is what differentiates it from a marsh? Yes. And what about what's a bayou then? Is that just slang for a?
Well, it's not. I think a bayou land would probably technically include definitely at least swamps and marshes, as you go. I think it's. And I'm not sure what the formal definition is.
Yeah, and the mangroves.
Mangroves are definitely swamps because mangroves are trees. So it's they're pretty amazing. Mangroves are part of what keeps a lot of the world's coasts intact because it's insanely tough wood, so they can stand up to hurricanes and things that no other kind of tree can deal with, and also crazy amounts of salt. Most trees just die when their roots are in salt water, but mangroves can handle it.
Why could we be talking so much about swamps?
I don't know. I wonder. Well, that's a bean that's already floating around the world.
It's true.
Just been watching Crocodile Dundee lately. That's all.
Sure.
1 and 2.
1 and 2.
Was there a 3?
Fingers crossed. If not, let's make it.
If they bring that
That's
back.
the Wildlands Kickstarter.
Mace, get Paul Hogan on the line.
Two-headed Crocodile Dundee.
On speakerphone right now. Go ahead and say whatever
Crocodile
you need to.
Dundee.
Yeah.
very DS.
That's not a crock. This is a crock. So anyways, what I'm doing right now is just texturing this bit of Wyvernium, which is going to be, I think, hopefully fun for Aaron to paint and to work out an interesting paint scheme for, because it's got some nice big facets, and it's also got some finer texturing that'll pick up more subtle dry brushing. So I think that's going to be some neat looking stone. And you'll be seeing bits of this on the mountain peaks and maybe somewhere else. All right, so that's that. There'll be a bit of that here, a bit of that here. Kind of a nice sort of multi-level kind of balanced effect with it without looking too contrived. I made this one a little broader, so it's kind of more interesting, kind of a double one going on here. This one's got a root wrapped around it. And now I'm going to get back to some fun with roots. So roots.
Fun with roots.
Fun with roots, yeah. So I got to make sure that clay is integrated with stone. So a lot of this phase of sculpting is like making things almost done and then mussing them up and screwing around with them. You can't be afraid to just keep tinkering.
The only reason you stop tinkering is because we have a deadline.
Yeah. I mean, well, sometimes there's... Mace was actually asking me about this when we were doing the time lapse, and like, how do you know when you're done? And that's definitely is always kind of like one of the artistic questions.
No
like,
art is ever done. It's just abandoned, because you have at some point you just have to, like, either you need you got
to know
a
when to stop,
deadline, or you've gone crazy, or whatever. Like you just at some point you just have to move on, because you're never done.
It's funny though. I have found for me that I kind of almost have like internalized sort of a cutoff switch. Like I'll be working and suddenly like, okay, it's done. It just like it comes out of me. I don't really think about it. It just like boom, stop now.
Done. Move.
And then I really appreciate that, because like I used to agonize it over it a bit more.
Well,
and
how much do you worry about? So, we're agonizing over every little millimeter of these things, but on the game table, most people are 2 or 3 feet away from it. Whatever, like, so how do you know, like, is this detail too small to be noticed, or do you care, or which ones you focus on, like?
Well, I mean, to a certain extent, I think it's always better to care more and to notice more than the customer, because then, they're never going to be disappointed, and
right, you don't want them to notice flaws or things that are lacking
that you missed. And you do have to, you can't spend 500 hours sculpting one piece, or you could, but you shouldn't.
We don't have the time.
We can't. And some of it is going to get lost in the production process, just because there's only so perfect that the molds can be. What
are you making here?
What I'm doing now, this is a bit of root. I tend to do a lot of picking around with teeny little bits of clay. That's actually a big one compared to some of the things I do. Like if I wanted to put
like the 28mm scale ants.
Yes, like the 28mm scale ants, which are there in one of the forest tiles. I believe it's the heavy forest. If you look around the roots of the large tree,
you'll find ants.
There's a little ant hill, and also on the side of the piece, there's a teeny little bit of a cross section of an ant burrow. So,
but they're like miniature giant ants. They're like
they're
bigger than
like they would be like
like cockroach
size if you were a human in on that scale. So they're they might have a pretty bad bite if they get into your picnic basket. But
so you're rolling out little tiny bits of root.
Yeah, I'm fitting in little bits of root, and sometimes well, can they see it there? Yeah, I know you can, but yeah.
No, I was talking about them. I don't care about me.
Yeah. Okay. So, and roots going up like this would be a little strange usually, but in this case, because the tree wants to hold itself onto the cliff, I think that's something that might happen. It's definitely going to make this fun.
Well, there's probably not a lot of places for those roots to go anyway, right? Don't they find the place where they can...
Yeah, well, and you'll definitely see they're following the fault lines of the stone, because that's what they dig into.
Felipe sent a photo. I got to send it a sec. He sent a photo... Was it in London? He was just in London or somewhere. There was a sidewalk with a tree had been planted on the sidewalk, and the roots followed. It was like square. It looked like a Gordon portrait train. It was like 1 foot squares of sidewalk that had like a ½ inch or an inch gap between them, and the roots had followed the thing and were squares. The roots would follow and woven through these like perfect crazy square matrix grid of roots that were like, it's outrageous.
Life imitates art, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you will find remarkably grid-like things in nature in certain places, certainly.
Well, that was just because nature was following.
I mean, that
the
wasn't a
humans
natural.
said, like,
obviously, that wasn't a natural thing. But if you had, say, limestone that was breaking in fairly square shapes, roots might follow it and make it look even more good-like, which is kind of what we got going on here.
So back to the question of like, so are you worried about how it's going to look at the, you know, you have to sort of scale back and say, wow, from 3 feet away, does this look okay?
Yeah, you attack of the gibbering mouth. Occasionally, you do have to, kind of pull back, look at it from a distance, say, all right, what's reading? Is that? You can just get that out of there.
I was trying to get it not white walled back.
Right. How's everything reading? Is it fun when you look at it up close and look for all the Easter eggs, but is it also fun from a distance? And because that, like you said, that is how most people are seeing it most of the time. And I mean, I do kind of love the idea of putting a detail in a piece that someone might have for 3 years, and then suddenly like, oh my God, there's the frog, there's the dwarven frog, or whatever, you know. Because there are definitely some of those things that are, you know, kind of hidden. Should we put a little?
We should take a backer. We should take a request for an Easter egg.
Speaking of which, we just had one. Knighthood was asking if there were any butterflies.
You know, I don't think we've done a butterfly, but there could be. There could be a butterfly. There could be a butterfly in this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There will be a butterfly.
Somebody else is saying moths. The goth butterfly.
Yeah, they're good. Death's head moth.
The thing is, a butterfly perches with its wings spread, whereas a moth tends to fold them up. So a butterfly is a more interesting shape, probably, and one that would be easier to... Yeah.
I love that you just knew that offhand.
I was so into etymology when I was... Yeah, I love insects, and...
As witnessed in the Cree sculpts.
Yeah, the Cree. They were based on favorite insects of mine. And scorpions, which are not insects, of course, but yeah, praying mantises and ambush bugs. Started out conceptually as like an ambush bug, which is a super fun critter, which probably a lot of people haven't heard of, but it's got this great kind of predator kind of vibe going on, and it's a bit like a praying mantis, but a bit smaller, and it's got kind of like hunched shoulders. It looks like a boxer, and it's got these, you know, and it's got, instead of a sort of chewing mouth part like a praying mantis, it's got a pointed proboscis that injects you with acid and basically dissolves your innards and then sucks you out from the inside.
There are a lot of spiders do that too. And
yeah, I mean, there's lots. Yeah,
classic.
But the Hemiptera do that. The true bugs.
Bane's Tabberwocky would like you to make owl pellets.
Owl pellets. Maybe probably not on this one, but maybe in the forest somewhere there could be small parrots. All right.
Owl pelts
put that on the list, Mace.
It's basically a bunch of fur and
okay, you got it.
Right,
we'll see. We'll see.
Just a list starts with owl pellets.
Aren't owl pelts like furry and
yeah, they're like basically the stuff that owls have eaten. I mean, it wouldn't actually look like much at this.
I feel like we dissected them in science class, right? Yeah.
There's also been a lot of people asking about bees or beehives.
Yeah.
Or wasps.
Was it Nick Cage in the comments?
Not the goddamn bees! Killing me won't bring back your goddamn honey.
I
may have seen that movie.
Pretty terrifying. Like a wasp nest.
Okay, that's an interesting thought.
You ever throw rocks at wasps' nests as a kid?
Because what we could do, I mean, a lot of wasps nest in holes in the ground. Of course, it would be easy enough to put a little wasp sitting next to a hole, and maybe it's just a wasp, or maybe it's a nest.
We have to have those holes in there for the things that we're gonna touch anyway. Yeah. What?
Time for Elye to do the splits.
We did.
We hit 100.
We got 100.
All right.
And I gotta take it away from sculpting. I don't know how we're gonna do this.
I don't know how you're gonna see it. I can totally do it.
Wait, he can go back to the wide cam. We can set you up right.
All right.
Are we gonna
you get it. I'll keep.
Across the thing?
No, I specifically said I'm not gonna suspend myself.
Like 4 times.
Yeah.
How about we just?
Because I have not warmed up, and I'm not gonna.
And you do it right on the table.
Cripple myself right in the middle.
Oh, we're gonna have to clip this.
We gotta make sure we don't show any beans.
There's probably
all
nothing.
The beans are like pretty much behind
I don't know what
the
Toby's.
desk.
I can.
Actually, Aaron's got a bunch of stuff right there.
I can hide that spot. I think Janice Test is pretty
the
safe.
Studio is chock full of cool stuff y'all can't see just yet.
You're just gonna put him on a table.
Put me on a table. All right, just as long as you don't get what Aaron's painting there.
It's blocked by the tripod. I think we're alright.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Sir Doobie Brothers says, "Don't rip the pants."
Don't rip the pants.
No, he's gonna take them off. Don't worry.
That also was not agreed to. I don't tend to wear.
We did put it in the contract.
I don't tend to wear super tight pants, so.
Where's HR?
Oh yeah, this is
Test it out for safety.
Yeah.
Make
I
sure
can't do it.
OSHA.
I can't do it
All right,
anywhere near
all
as
right.
good,
I'm gonna disappear from camera for 1 second and just like warm up.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be.
Yeah, don't split your jeans.
We need to get a Rocky montage time lapse going now too.
The table might break.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know,
Nah,
it's pretty
table's
light
gonna be
though.
Yeah.
Tested it out.
Maybe a Twitch terms
That's gonna be like on the next Dwarven Forge calendar.
All right.
The door reports the hunky.
Yeah, you can be October.
Alright, we're gonna take a picture of this.
All right. So.
Am I blocking it?
Oh
Wait.
my god. Oh my god.
Oh.
Is this?
This is happening live.
There we go,
Woo!
folks.
Reach your heart out, Twitch! Woo!
All right. That's
Nice.
probably enough. Yeah.
It's really good.
All right.
That's some good stuff.
Oh, I just destroyed something.
Ah, prototype down! Ah.
Don't look. Can't see.
We had,
whatever.
and that was in jeans.
Yeah,
That doesn't
that's
even
a
make
good
sense.
stretch.
Wow, how are we gonna top that?
I split my jeans.
Right, now I'm fine.
Okay. All right. And back to sculpting.
Wow.
Brief pause.
Back to
for
work.
Calisthenics.
Splits never happen.
Yeah. I didn't actually damage anything, did I? Aaron?
No.
Okay, good. That was polystone, not dwarvenite, but it's still pretty sturdy. The thing I randomly kicked off the desk there.
It's just another.
Are we
another
about
day
to
at the
see
forge.
him mash his coin purse? Somebody asked. Which is that
Yeah,
a
wait,
euphemism?
sorry, what?
It's a euphemism for your scrotum.
I wondered.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I guess I didn't need that.
He mashed his coin purse, he did. Governor.
Oh no, me riches.
Me family jewels. If there's one thing I keep in my coin purse, it's jewels.
Got a bit jangly in
because
my
of
Oh,
coin
now
purse.
Nate, you have
Jewel
to do the
purse then,
splits. That's
doesn't
what
it?
the.
I
What's that?
can't do this.
Not as beans, right?
Yeah.
You know what?
Those
I will-
beans will never be exposed.
I'm legally not allowed to show these beans.
Oh, we have a good question.
You know what I will
Yeah,
do?
wait, is there a legitimate,
I will
like,
do something on the mock-up stream if we break 100 viewers. I will do something. I don't know. We'll figure out what it is.
yeah,
but I will
and
do
you won't
a
necessarily get to choose.
I can't do
what
a
it is.
split. Yeah.
Why are they called beans? Mizukin.
Ah, Don't spill the beans.
So Stefan, I don't know if anybody's heard of Stefan. So he's got this habit of completely being incapable of holding a secret for any longer than 3 seconds. So back in, I don't know, it started in is it City Builder or Castle Builder? Like it would just be like, you know, as soon as there'd be a thing, he would take a picture of it and blast it out on Facebook or whatever, and it infuriated me. It was like just crazy. So I just kept saying, like, dude, you can't spill the beans on this. Like you can't spill the beans, and then he'd be like, no beans, no beans, no beans, and then it would post that, and then it just became a thing. Everybody was like, beans? How about some beans? And then they'd try and get drinks into him, so he'd spill beans, and like beers equal beans, and this thing. So yeah, it's all. We have a can of Valorian beans here somewhere that Janet mocked up that would cover things, but basically it was just because Stefan couldn't keep a secret. I would always want to tell everybody everything, and meanwhile I wanted to keep things secret so we could have a fun, dramatic campaign and have things to reveal and have some surprises and have some excitement and whatever. So, thus beans.
We actually use that can of beans in the Hellscape video.
Yeah, it rotates on the thing. It was it like a
Momo barks and like
yeah.
the beans.
What was the one? You know, we had in the Hellscape video. Speaking of beans, so we have, you know, our backers are very sharp and brilliant and scrutinize all this stuff. I don't think anybody found the bean in the Hellscape video. There's a bit where all the pieces spin around and transform from one piece into another. Mm-hmm. There are a couple of frames in there of an unrevealed piece in the middle of the in the spin arounds.
That still
I don't think
hasn't
anybody.
I remember. I explicitly put that in. I don't remember. I think it was the.
I don't know what it was, but we hid something in there.
I think it was the wall of fire. We hid in the turnarounds.
But nobody cut that one.
Wow.
Yeah, which is weird.
You condemned a bunch of people to hunting around.
The best was speaking of Beans and Stefan, he posted something. He hastily redacted a photo on whatever. He just took his red an MS Paint, just put some red spray paint over the stuff, and then posted it on the internet. And immediately the forums did some blue filter and thing and removed his redaction and could see mock-ups and things and pulled out. He was even when trying not to spill beans, he was spilling beans.
Oh. It's impressive the lengths some people will go to find things out too. And I mean,
they
it's
hacked
great.
our site. There was
really?
Yeah, someone found the root folder where images were kept and pulled up in Kickstarter 3 or 4 or something. I don't know. Yeah, people are excited to find out.
Yeah, no, I mean it's great that they're that committed to it. It's so we get a little more fun rootage going.
Wow. Yeah.
I think I'll add a little bit. I think I might have one climbing up in here too. That would be. And I can cross that. Yeah.
Love it.
So, definitely doing a little more with the roots here. That's just gotta make this much more fun to look at.
Well, it's visually, color-wise, and things.
I think, and I think what I'll do, again, because I want to tinker with these angles here, I'm just gonna add a little bit of a nub here that this tree maybe had a little bit of a branch that grew off of this and then broke off. And
speaking of living things in this, when do you put the little bits of plants and moss and stuff? Is that the last?
That's generally the final touch, and I should definitely do some of that before we finish up. I don't know what time is it. Are we going
9:20 or 8:20? 8:20.
Oh, so
4:20, bro.
We got a little time.
Just saying.
But
So we've been for about 40 more minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll definitely maybe give me a heads up when we've got
it's moss time.
20 to go or something, and I'll do, because definitely plant life is fun, and
pop a few in.
And that's actually one of also the most time consuming things. It's a bit more like mini sculpting, because you're being super precise about a bunch of very small things and plants have stricter forms than rocks generally. If you see a plant and the leaves are all wonky, you're gonna know a bit more. It's rocks can be just about any shape, so even if they have a normal form, there's usually some rock that totally breaks the rules, but you're not going to find a plant
with punk
round
rock.
leaves.
As it were.
Or an alt rock. Or
Mace does not abide.
I abide. I just shake my head.
She's shaking her head in shame at us.
If you don't like puns, then you don't.
Everybody here, I feel like this is a company built more on puns than anything else.
Puns and fairy dust, basically.
And fairy dust, yeah, you're right.
Equal portions. Yeah. So what are you doing there? You're
all right,
rolling a little,
this is I'm still going Rudy here, and so I'm just going to add one that's climbing up a bit toward the spire, just again because the tree wants to hold itself for dear life. I mean, you could put this on top of a very high cliff and have a tree.
We want that. Precarious is one of our.
In fact, actually, with that in mind, I'm going to take these roots here and dig them in a little further, so that they won't look weirdly chopped off if you put them on top of a cliff, but they'll just look like they're receding back into the stone.
Well, there's theoretically there'll be a little tiny gap between this and the piece you put on top.
Yeah,
so they can be creeping into that
they're
gap.
Creeping into that, exactly.
We have to.
We always try to think about what other pieces will be used with it, what creative things people will do, and try and make it look good in as many ways in as many environments as possible.
We need to also put a little work in where the butterfly is going to be.
Oh yeah, okay. So butterfly.
You don't necessarily have to sculpt it, but at least sort of mark the spot. So when people get their pieces in 2021, they will go, "That's the butterfly that we saw on the stream before the splits."
Yeah. So I'm thinking we got a lot of fun stuff going on here. We've got this interesting thing here. I'm definitely gonna have some moss down in here. A butterfly probably is gonna want to land in a sunny spot. But maybe not right up in the most obvious place where you get stepped on. So I'm thinking maybe this ledge here would be a good spot for butterfly.
Because that's kind of a ledge. It's not really big enough to put a mini
Right,
on.
exactly. So no one's going to crush it and alter the future of the universe by,
It could happen right there.
I mean, they could. But at least we won't abet it. We'll make them work to do that. So, yeah. Okay, so Then we'll put a little butterfly in there. Okay. One more monarch of the few that remain. Actually, if I am ultimately judged worthy by the cosmos, it will be because my yard at home is full of milkweeds. And I always have a zillion monarch caterpillars and new monarchs.
That was the best as a kid, where you take
yeah.
the caterpillars and you get the chrysalis and you put them in a jar, and with the milkweed you get the chrysalis.
You watch them.
It was magic. It's magic, and they're so alien looking.
Yeah,
and so like all the cool ways, the colors and the thing, and
they start out so like they're like that big when they start. Like,
and they're just eating
yeah,
milkweed like nobody's business, and they get all fat, and they build this chrysalis, and it looks like straight up alien invasion. Yeah. And then a beautiful butterfly comes out, and you let it out into the wild.
I always liked the fuzzy caterpillar specifically.
The woolly bear?
Yeah, the ones that are like orange and black.
Woolly
like
bears,
stripes,
yeah.
like fuzzy ones.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just going to put a very rough basic butterfly here, which is probably too big, I think.
I hate them.
Just so, I mean, it's really basic. But
it's too big.
It's too big, yeah. All right.
That's
yeah, I know.
That's
right,
no.
I just
that's
wanted
no
to
28mm scale ant. That's
no. Well, might be maybe I should make a Luna moth. Ooh. Because they'll perch with their. Maybe I want a Luna moth.
But maybe it's about to take off, and it's dropping its wings down.
But no, Luna moths will sometimes have their wings out, anyways.
That's a good idea.
If for those of you who don't know what a Luna moth is, it's a particularly spectacular large moth.
Huge.
It's this wonderful. Yeah, it's like, wingspan like that. And they're this sort of ghostly pale green color, and they come out, of course, at night under the moon.
They like to fly against your big windows for the light, and it looks cool.
And those stupid bug zapper lights tend to kill them. They have long kind of tails on their wings.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
It's probably going to take me like half an hour just to do a nice Luna moth.
It's
honestly.
the
So
logo. It's the
I'm
logo
not going to rush
for
this right now.
Lunesta. I think the sleep drug.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
Lunesta?
Yeah. I pitched them on an animated video of the story of two Luna moths, a mother and daughter Luna moth. Didn't work out.
That's still too big.
I'm just thinking about Animal Crossing.
Still too big. Okay, well, I'm just going to leave it there as a reminder to myself that's where the moth goes.
So, wait, show up to the.
All right, so.
Wait, this way. This way. Right.
Okay.
And wait.
Okay, it's there. And again, that's a super.
When you
crude,
get your piece, you'll.
Super crude version of it, but there will be a nice moth there when we're done. Okay, so that will be the fun critter for this, and yeah, we'll put a wasp in somewhere. Maybe like a sort of yellow jacket type vespid wasp that would have an underground nest somewhere.
Well, we've got those holes in the side for special geometry. Could that be like a wasp nest in there?
I mean, it could. Do we want 2 insects on this piece? Maybe not. Maybe. I don't know.
I mean, it's tiny.
I could put. I mean, I could do I could do a super small scale couple of wasps. Over here by the.
Well, this could be. This piece doesn't have a really good name anyway, so this becomes the insect rock.
Yeah. I've put a few other fun insects. I put a death watch beetle on one piece. We got coming up a stag beetle that Nina and I both worked on the stag beetle, I think, funnily enough. She roughed it out and then I tinkered. And there's several fun creatures that will be appearing here and there in the quite a menagerie actually, in the swamps and the forests.
But this menagerie, if you took them all out and put them out on a piece, it would be maybe a 2x2 tiles worth full at tops.
Oh,
right?
not
If you
even
took
that,
all the tiny little critters from all the rabbits and the frogs and the snakes and the whatever.
There's a couple lizards that are a little bigger maybe, but even that, you wouldn't fill a 2x2.
So, fun fact, the Cart of Livestream says that
the
Luna
carnivore?
moths,
What, carnivore livestream?
the Cart of Livestream says Luna moths only live for breath and sex. They have no mouths or digestive systems, only reproductive systems.
Yeah, it's amazing how many adult insects actually are just pretty much
Sex
mating
machines?
Yeah, sex machines. Like all the mayflies, pretty much that entire order of insects, all they do is they spend like seasons, years underwater, and then they become adults for 2.5 days. I mean, it depends on the species, but they're the ephemeroptera, the ephemeral creatures, ephemeral wings.
There's got to be a joke in there somewhere. There's I don't know what.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a hot dog joke.
Wait, Luna moths and...
Yeah, I don't know.
It's probably something to do with, the nighttime.
No, it's just existing strictly, yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I can imagine lots of comedians be like, I wish I was
the reason why they love the moon.
I would be one of those bugs.
It's their time.
Thanks for that fun fact.
Yeah, that's, I think that the Cardiff live streams submitted that.
Any other fun questions from the comments?
Yeah.
A lot of people are saying snakes would be cool to have in this piece, or
There's been some snakes on.
There's been snakes. I just did a snake on one of the forest pieces very recently, so you'll get a little more snakeage.
There's a lot of love for trifectas as well going on.
Yeah. What can they tell us? Why do they love trifectas so much? I mean, I know why. But I'm curious. What is the audience, the live studio audience here? Why do they love that?
It's a fun word to say. Says Craig Kaflar.
You had me there. I'm sold. Next question.
Finley Short says this piece should be called the lower jaw, then an upper jaw archway over the top with worminite fangs. Wyvernite fangs. Yeah.
I could see that. Have a kind of that
Castle
big
Grey
blind
skull.
head that Aladdin goes into. I can't remember the name of it. Cave of Wonders. That kind of thing going on with the stalagmites.
Yeah.
On this? Oh, you mean? Oh, yeah.
Those stalagmites are teeth and.
Yeah. Well, hanging stones like that would be super cool, wouldn't they?
Yeah, we could think of something.
Like
Precarious, one of our guiding principles for these mountains.
Okay, so just from a kind of sculpting perspective, what I've been doing here is actually kind of jumping backwards a little bit in that I'm kind of roughing out new things, mostly roots.
Wow, look at those roots.
But yeah, that's gonna be fun. I might add a little bit more going this way, wrapping around this Wyvernium crystal. Not quite a crystal. Shard, Wyvernium shard. Go up and over there. Yeah.
Speaking of all these weird animals, do you want to tell people about your menagerie at home? You've got a few fowls.
I do have a few fowls. I have 2 cats, Dougie and Ray, and 7 chickens.
And there's a pecking order among these chickens.
Yeah, well, all chickens have a pecking. I mean, that's where the term comes from somebody watching chickens, I think.
Really?
Yeah, there's an order in which this chicken gets to peck that chicken, and that chicken does not get to peck back. But it's actually not quite as simple as, a strict linear order. Because, as I mentioned to you guys earlier, we have our sort of boss hen is named Henna. She's a henna-colored, what is she? She's a speckled Sussex, which is a very handsome kind of hen. And anyways, she's the boss chicken because she's kind of the smartest one.
Does everybody tell her how handsome she is and stuff?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm biased, but all of our chickens are quite beautiful. But yes, no, chickens.
And she's the only one that's laying?
She's the only one that's laying at the moment. Yeah, they take the fall off because they need to grow new feathers and because winter comes and they aren't so keen on all that.
Yeah, because it was it's been well below zero.
We had 25 below not that long ago. Yeah, and
cold. This is Fahrenheit for you. For you guys watching the UK, rabbit burners.
Yeah,
he's probably asleep by
he went
long
to sleep
and gone.
A long time ago.
Okay, right. Well, fair enough.
Yeah. It's time for him to get up to go to work at this
Yeah.
point over there. He's like,
well, if he watches the second part of it, that's Fahrenheit. But anyways, yeah. So, but then they start laying again when the days start growing longer.
Henna.
So Henna is the boss hen, pretty much.
Who's the nasty hen?
So then we have 2 speckled Sussexes. Rhea is the other one, and she is. I mean, I think of them as sisters, even though they're probably not. They just came from the same hatchery. But anyways, Rhea will peck Henna sometimes. But she's definitely not the top bird because Henna can boss everyone else around, and other birds boss Rhea around a lot, but no one else tries to boss Henna around.
Wait, so what happens when you peck the boss hen? Like, what happens?
Well, Henna just puts up with it. She's fairly chill. She's fairly good natured.
So she's just smart. She's not she's not.
She's not the boss by virtue of being the biggest or strongest or anything. She's just got the brains of the operation. Yeah. So it's like she's a better forager. She's more alert. She's smarter at figuring out how to eat new foods and things. And
the least bird-brained.
The least bird. Yeah. I mean, chickens are not geniuses, but they're not as dumb as people think they are. Particularly if they've had a chance to kind of grow up somewhere they get to a stimulating environment. They're not just stuck in a cage all the time.
So what sort of stimulating environment do you...
Well, just like a free... they get to wander around the landscape, eat bugs. Chickens are another great thing about chickens. They eat ticks. They eat Japanese beetles.
Oh.
And they're fun. If you've got... if you're just feeling annoyed with life, there's nothing more cathartic than getting a handful of Japanese beetles and feeding your chickens. Like, here, take that, you little buggers. And they gobble them nice, simple pleasures. But if they're destroying your garden and then your chickens eat them, then
especially
it feels like there's some sort of cosmic justice somehow.
Eli's wife Eva is a botanist, so I imagine you guys have a decent garden.
Yes, we have beautiful gardens all over the place.
Just constantly besieged by Japanese beetles.
Japanese beetles will want to eat everything that you don't want them to eat, pretty much. So
they're jerks.
And yeah.
So and who else you got? So
it's in my immediate menagerie, it's just.
That's only 2 hens. What are the other 5 chickens?
There's Merowyn. Those of you who are familiar with the Serpent Temple, a couple of the walls of the Serpent Temple, Forsaken Temple, the Temple of Sasul, the walls with the 3-headed cobras, and the corner with the green brazier. I sculpted those with a chicken sitting on my lap and/or my shoulder. And that was Merowyn. She's a very sweet little squeaky girl. She doesn't cluck like a chicken. She sort of squeaks. And
first of all, do you have pictures? Put that on the list, Mace.
Okay, yeah, I definitely have some nice chicken pictures.
Okay.
Of you sculpting with.
Do I have them of me sculpting?
I
think Eva might have taken a shot or 2 of me with the chicken on me. Yeah. And the reason that was going, they're friendly chickens, so they like to sit on your lap if you let them. But normally they're not doing that in the house. But this was in the house because it was winter. And Merowyn had an impacted crop, which means the food wasn't getting down through her crop, which is a problem. And so she had to be in the house while she was getting over that. The good thing about a chicken with an impacted crop is that it's not pooping. So it can be in the house without making a mess. So while she was, for 5 or 6 days while she was getting over this, we had to give her oil and massage, and she had to wear a chicken bra, this thing that put pressure on her crop to help. I know, it's totally ridiculous.
Where do you buy a chicken bra?
Certain veterinarians carry these things. Anyways, very silly. But so anyways, she had nothing better to do but hang out with me because my wife was off she was working elsewhere at the time. So it was me and the chicken, and I'd be like, all right, sculpting, and she'd hop up in my lap and be squeaking away, and I would sculpt. So those pieces were made in company of a chicken.
You had a chicken with a chicken bra on your lap.
Yeah, either on my lap or sometimes she would sit on my shoulder because that seemed like they like to perch on high places. That's fun, they feel important. So Merowyn is the third one. Then there's Elsie and Fiona, and they are 2 buff Orpingtons, so the kind of golden yellow ones. Merowyn is black. She's a black Australorp.
Most badass of chickens is what you're saying?
No, well, she's probably number 2 in the brains department. She's quite clever too. She's a go-getter. She's just super personable. And she laid her very first egg on my birthday, which definitely was a cool. That's forever endeared her to me. Yeah.
We have about 20 minutes to go.
20 minutes to
go.
So
you should start thinking about plants.
Okay,
soon.
So I'll just give due credit to Lyra and Silverbell, the last 2.
Silverbell.
Yeah, they're lavender Orpingtons. And then I will do something else, but I'm not talking about chickens. Okay, so I'm fairly happy with how the roots are looking now. We're following the fault lines, but also creeping out over the surface. Got some kind of interesting stuff going on both sides. Got a little bit more going on up here. I might carry this one out around here.
So exciting. And you're Dougie, your cat,
Yes.
featured in the Griffin Tamer Kickstarter video.
My original Kickstarter, my cat Dougie. If you watch it to the end, which you should, because the most fun part is the very end, where my cat, that does have a blooper reel, or at least a blooper add-on. While I was filming it, my cat decided I was up to something weird. I'm just sitting there talking at nothing. And so he did a couple things. One, which I didn't put on there, but which he sort of slowly crept up behind my shoulder. So you just see these little ears coming up, and then suddenly so like over the course of like a minute, this cat gradually appears. So I thought that was too long. But the one thing I did put in there was I was just sitting there talking, and he had climbed up in my lap and was sitting behind the table out of sight. And then suddenly, just in the middle of me talking, he just leaps up and boops me on the nose with his paw. Just like boing, just completely out of nowhere. Like, what the hell are you doing? Stop talking to nothing. And it was hilarious.
Cats like to, just like to let you know that they're assholes.
Yeah, and he wanted to be involved. I don't know what this is. But yeah. Yeah. Okay,
right,
so now
plants.
let's do some plant stuff. All right, so let's get some plant stuff and get it done. So it's all right. So what would be kind of fun? Just let me do vine. There's a few different kinds of vines I've been doing. And there's kind of a that's more
not appearing in the rock in the mountains.
Right, and also that's kind of a leafless thing. It's more kind of almost tentacle like, which is I was doing like smilax and jessamine in the swamps, and there's kind of a smilax like one, but it's just something I sort of invented. That's
I know. There's a lot of requests for ferns.
Ferns? Okay, I can do a fern. Yeah, I'll do a fern. Okay. Good place for fern might be right here in this low spot. So what I'm going to do real quickly is make a little bit of moss. So I'm just...
And you're definitely sure there's calls for ferns? Can you confirm that?
Yeah, I can confirm that.
All right. Uh-oh, we lose
these
his, we
infernal
lost
puns.
the feed.
We lost the what?
Oh, hang on. Let me repeat that real quick. One moment.
We lost your,
The pun killed it.
yeah.
Hey, Chris.
What's up?
Check Slack.
Reboot the fern.
There we go. We're back.
Woo!
Okay, sorry
And
everyone.
it's done.
So we got a request for ferns. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm just adding a teeny bit of material in this crack here. One thing I feel is very important, even for something that seems just like a little surface structure, like moss, I will always add a tiny bit of clay, just because that slight change gives it a feeling of presence. So then what I'm going to do is find my moss tool. I have a few different tools I use for mosses, and they're all missing. Here we go. All right, so this will just be a quick, easy one. So it's just in this case a screw with some green stuff for a handle, and I'm just gonna kind of push in some. This is kind of our most common like ground cover moss throughout the forest.
So why the screw? Do you like that it has a little...
Yeah, it pulls up a little bit of clay, and this is something we've all just kind of been using as kind of the standard moss tool. Nina has one of these. Toby probably has one of these. In fact, yeah, I'm sure he has one of these. I remember we were looking at screws together, like which is the best screw to use for the
moss screws.
Yeah, moss screws. So it could be a whole new marketing ploy for the makers of screws. So anyways, I'm laying down a little bit of moss.
Screw it up, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So many puns.
Yeah. Did that pun kill the feed? No, the last one did.
No.
I think it's well and alive.
Okay, so now I've got a good spot for it, because ferns don't. Well, they sometimes will grow just on stone, but with their roots in the cracks. But I figure a mossy base is a good place for that, and also gives me a little more space to build it up without interfering with this flat area we want. So, and this is a small space by our standards, so I'm going to do a pretty small fern. And initially I actually made some molds with green stuff, like I sculpted fern leaves, made molds of them, but what I've been preferring to do lately is just freehand do the ferns from scratch, because that gives me a little more creativity, freedom to make different sorts of ferns. So yeah, this is going to be like some kind of a calcareous cliff kind of ferns. Those tend to be, there's a bunch of different kinds, but they tend to be sort of long and thin and relatively delicate. So
Calcareous cliff ferns. That's fun to say.
That's yeah. Well, limestone is a calcareous rock, lots of calcium, and very particular sorts of unusual plants grow in calcareous cliffs, as I know, thanks to my lovely wife, the botanist. And so, anyways, let's see. That's all right. That's too big. Let's shrink that down a little.
Can they see? But if you do that, look to your left, it would be.
All right.
Yeah,
sorry,
there you go.
Sorry, folks. Yeah. Okay. Keeping me honest here. All right. So I'm gonna make a rough shape of a fern leaf.
Keeping you on camera, I guess.
Yeah. Can be dishonest as long as it's on camera.
Yep.
And then I'm going to cut out some of the pinnae of the fern, as the sections of a fern frond are called.
Really?
Yeah. And you can further define a fern by saying how many times pinnate it is. So if it's just divided once, it's once pinnate. But if the pinnae are divided with further pinnae, it's
5
twice
times.
pinnate, and you can have a
Wow.
yeah. Do you ever get a 5 times pinnate? Maybe. That would be very ferny indeed.
I brought a bunch of ferns back from the woods in Vermont to plant in our house in Queens.
How did they do?
A couple of them are still alive. Yeah,
Some-
the ones I watered.
Yeah, some species are pretty hardy. They're they'll stay green through the winter and you can step on them. Other kinds are super like there's one that the common name is sensitive fern, and it does tend to curl up and turn brown if it's bugged. You step on it too much.
It's like they remind me of home. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I love ferns.
It's a good smell and the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's ferntastic, says Bane Stabberwocky.
Okay. Anybody that's taken their name off of Jabberwocky is a winner in my book. That's one of my favorite poems. Another crazy stunt I'll have to do at some point is Jabberwocky in Welsh.
What?
But not this time.
Oh.
I can do Jabberwocky in Welsh.
Why not?
Because I already did the splits.
Okay,
Yeah, you gotta save
you
some
did
for
the
next time.
splits?
Yeah.
All right.
One stunt.
Fair.
Per
I'll put it on the
screen.
list. I'll put it on the list.
Yeah, put it on the list.
Single stunt screen.
Okay, so now I'm putting this fern is not done, but I'm just getting it. I'm gonna get a couple leaves in place, cut, shaped, and in place, and then I'll do some further detailing as I fit them into the environment. So yeah.
Wow. This is kind of a fun experiment, seeing what happens if people would watch Sculpting.
Yeah.
And then move to your left a little bit again.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and any more sculpting questions, people? Are we? Here's a question: am I talking enough about sculpting or too much about chickens, or is this a fun mix?
I think it's a fun mix. We have gone back and forth questions. A lot of them are about how you know so much. Who do you work for? And the like.
We did that.
I'm
Who do you work for?
I wish I knew.
But as people filter in questions about sculpting, I will ask you them.
Yeah, definitely throw them at me.
Do you have any advice? What kind of plants, I guess, are easiest, and how do you know if nature would occur in the sense that you're placing it?
Okay, well, those are two very different questions.
Answer both of them, quick.
Yeah, well, I mean, the first question, what plants are easiest? That actually it brings up a very good point, which is there are a whole lot of kinds of plants that are completely impossible to reproduce in this way because they are, there's a lot of teeny little vertical structures that you just can't do in dwarvenite.
Right, we need castable.
Yeah, it has to be castable. And so definitely some of what, some of the things I chose to do for plants are things that can be translated into dwarvenite in this way, in a way that's going to look good. Ferns are one of those things. I mean, not all ferns lie flat on stone, but some certainly do. And you can get a sense of their beautiful fronds, and that there's a fern there, even if it's flatter than some ferns would be, because there are some that are like this. So ferns are a great choice. Okay, what I'm doing now is...
Norse Foundry is here.
Oh! Hey, Drew. Yeah, so...
Hey, folks.
Norse Foundry is here. Drew is logging.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's kind of a good... in about 5 minutes, we're going to give away some Norse Foundry goodies.
Yeah. So, So choosing plants is partly dependent on what is going to look good and what is doable at this scale. Okay, so all right, and what I've done here is I've found this.
Well, also in what the peanut gallery is requesting.
Yeah, what the peanut, but as far as like if just as a general rule, if someone's asking like what do I look at for putting a plant?
Oh, what was the other question?
The other question is how do you know what's going to occur in that environment?
Do you talk to your wife?
I do. When we were working on the escarpments, I was like, hey, what plants would be good, and I mean, I'm fortunate that I
Dread Hollow, like, right? You did a bunch of sort of research and figuring out, like, sort of what
absolutely.
What's our collection of plants going to be.
Yeah, and for this new set, I spent a while kind of coming up with like a compendium of plants on that one piece that we cast for everyone to use for reference because. There's different plants in the swamp, of course. So yeah, I do some research. I am fortunate that I live in the North Woods, and I just do actually know a fair bit about plants. I spend time out in the woods and I look at things, and also, I mean, there are some things that I'm making up, just again based on having kind of a sense of the logic of plant forms and what might be. Something that looks like it belongs there is gonna read as an interesting plant on this scale. Right now, I'm just kind of.
Yeah, this Wyvernium is just. I'm not buying it. It's not. It's not like the real Wyvernium that I've seen out in the North Woods.
Where do you get inspiration for a piece like this that you're working on? Asks Stick Death one.
Stick Death.
Well, probably the things that particularly come to mind are coastal cliffs, like in Wales, in Maine.
You spent a year in Wales.
I lived in Wales for a year, and I spent a ton of time out wandering around the countryside, particularly visiting just interesting natural places. And Scotland, there's some amazing places like up in Skye, the Isle of Skye, the Old Man of Storr. Anyone that knows that formation on Skye, that's amazing, and that has a bit of the vibe of these crazy Wyvernium spires. So definitely, just going out and looking at whatever interesting, like wherever you happen to be. I'm not sure where the questioner is, but there's probably something within, a couple 100 miles at least that you can get to without having to get on a plane. That's going to be, if not a perfect limestone cliff, at least something that's going to be a very interesting natural form to look at for stone, for trees, for plants.
You can also, the internet
and then
is
the internet
also
has a whole lot of stuff. Yeah. And I will do searches. I'll look at limestone formations of various sorts. I have kind of a library of images we came up with for all of us that we, kind of bounce around together at the studio.
Well, we do this neat mixture of stealing pictures that are of existing, real things, and drawing, concept art, and sort of, gathering the sort of the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and then synthesizing it into something that feels art. So there's some, more or less finished up ferns. I've put the angle on the pinnae because they tend to not lie perfectly flat. They're often kind of at a bit of an angle, and sort of the vein down the middle. I'll put a little bit of central structure where it's all growing up from. Because most ferns, at least the kinds of ferns we've been doing, don't tend to appear in big fields. There are many species that will do that, but these ones are the kinds that tend to lay flat, and they tend to come out of one central whorl. So
Knighthood X wants to know, for a forest mold like this, would something like lichen or ivy vines be something? Lichen, sorry. Lichen or ivy vines be something that is easily done during painting or in the sculpting phase?
Lichen, yeah. I definitely put bits of lichen. I don't get too crazy with it, mostly because I don't want to drive the painters insane, because there could be lichen all over the place. But I'm going to right now put a little bit of lichen. Lichen is super easy.
I think he was saying, can you just fake it with painting? Is that what was that his?
If that's the question, I would say it's gonna look way better if it has a physical component.
You gotta have some texture to it.
Yeah,
you gotta have
doesn't have to have a whole lot, but just a teeny bit. And if you're an aspiring sculptor and you want something to start out with improvising lichen on your rocks, because there are a few things that are easier than lichen.
And then we have one more question before we should probably do the
giveaway.
The drum roll. Eli, if you want to think up one of your chicken names to have people enter in the chat for them to win. But the question is, will any bank or rocky type piece be in a similar paint as Dread Hollows, specifically DH escarpments?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Compatibility is one of our middle names.
We have several middle names.
We have so many names.
Some of them not as nice.
Dwarven Compatibility Forge.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, chicken name for, let's do Elsie because it's relatively easy for. I don't want people to spell another one. ELSIE.
All right. So type Elsie into the chat, and in the next minute, we're gonna keep this open. You type Elsie ELSIE into the chat, and the lucky winner is going to get the full set of Adventurers and Adversaries modular miniatures from our friends at Norse Foundry. Do we have? Where's that box of minis?
It's over here on the couch.
Yeah.
Wait, don't move your chair.
Right.
I'll go.
All right. Yeah, they're beautiful minis. Really nice. I'm sure any of you who like painting minis are gonna have a blast with those.
Charles.
While they're entering their
look at these guys.
the word, we also have a few questions.
Hold that in the.
Yeah.
Can you go back to the?
It is U.S. only.
How does this look? Can you see this, Mace?
A little bit closer to yourself.
Close to me?
Yes.
We can't see this.
Down.
Lower.
Lower.
Here.
A little bit to the right.
Okay, if Nate. There. Okay.
It's right there. Isn't it? So it's a sprue with weapons
so
modular.
Dragonborn. This is a nice Zweihander or a halberd, which is cool. I had to sculpt a halberd on a Dragonborn for Palamine recently. I didn't know there was one. Okay, got to get this. Warhammer shield. So 3 different cool weapon options and two different
heads, more arms over here.
Yeah.
And that's one. And there's
just one Dragonborn.
10 or a dozen of these. These are all from Adventures and Adversaries 1. And if you like these, they have their second Kickstarters happening right now. We were just hanging out with Norse Foundry at PAX East, which is awesome.
Oh, another thing that we should touch on before.
They gave us table risers for our display.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, Drew is awesome.
Shout out to Drew.
And Charles was there. We said hi.
We should talk about this Hellgate behind you.
Oh, yeah.
About this?
Yeah. People have been very interested in it. They're asking, is it resin?
You know, they're going to be a little disappointed because they can't get it.
This was the limited edition Dread Portal.
Ooh, that needs some light. Hang on, I'm going to just do my flashlight.
Which I sculpted for our Hellscape Kickstarter. And this is a resin piece. It's one of the few new resin bits that we've done because it was a special limited edition thing, which really kind of, it's got a translucent energy portal vortex there.
Arcane Gyre.
Arcane Gyre, yes. We've got some devils up along the side here, like Geryon-like kind of figures. Let's see if anyone can note the faces on this obelisk.
We already have a comment on it, actually.
Okay. Does anyone know who this is? What that's an homage to?
Demon faces from the original Monster Manual?
Yeah, that is Beelzebub from the original Monster Manual, who didn't reappear in 5th edition for some reason. At least as far as I know. He's definitely not in the hierarchy.
He's in
Monster Manual 1.
Not in the manual, but in the...
no, he's not in the...
Mordecai's Stone of Foes? Oh, he was dethroned in...
I don't think he's even mentioned Beelzebub. There's Belial. There's a couple of them that are mentioned that were in the original one, but he is... Because I was like, that is weird.
They had a whole history of who's dethroned who and taken the... Like, because the
$5
hierarchy has changed. Yeah, no, I'm sure you're right.
Yeah. But I thought it was weird. Because they got rid of some of the ones that were in 1st edition, and it was really fun. There's a couple spine devils.
I'm sure the comments know. Yeah. They'll be like,
actually,
page 42. It's a
and then these are removable with these little clips, so you can have your obelisk separate. I guess.
Or take them off altogether.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, this was a limited edition for just in the Kickstarter. So if you didn't join the Hellscape Kickstarter, this is not available to you.
You might be able to get it off of eBay or something.
Jackass will sell it on eBay.
But it will probably not be cheap. This is a collector's edition thing, but it does exist. This was one of the most fun things I had most fun sculpting as part of Hellscape. It comes with this translucent. Yeah.
And that thing fits just in a perfect
and this also fits in a normal 2-inch wide hallway.
I have one of these. Okay, no, wait, flip it right around.
Oh, yeah.
The elevator, it should line up.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. So
Lines
if
up
you
on the
run
back,
through
turn it
your
around sideways.
portal.
Compatibility.
Yeah. Compatibility.
That's the middle name.
Whoever this guy is, he just came running through there into
It
hell.
lines
May
up
have
with
been a
your
mistake. Yeah.
elevation blocks.
Yeah.
All right, so let's wrap up the giveaway. So, did everybody? What was it? ELISE.
ELSIE, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
ELSIE.
We have over 50 entries.
All
so
right.
Nice.
that's,
All right,
All
so
right.
we're gonna count down to the giveaway. Ready? 5, 4,
Four,
3, 2, 1.
And
Norse Foundry.
That's Knighthood X.
Knighthood X.
Nice.
Knighthood X, all right.
Woo, congrats.
All right. Hopefully you're domestic. We'll
Yes.
whisper to you and
He's
get you.
feral.
Yeah. We'll get you a whole bunch of these guys from Adventurers and Adversaries 1.
Okay, so I've got I did a little bit of fern here. Can we see that all right?
Yeah. Let me tighten the focus a bit.
Yeah.
There we
Hold it up
There
just a
we
little
go.
higher if you can. Boom.
And I'll add a few more fronds for that fern, and I'll definitely be adding a bunch more little bits of
See that?
foliage of various sorts of things growing in here. Probably will do like a bit of vine hanging down here. Probably some like
Just show them where
saxifrages and
the butterfly or the
Oh, yeah.
Luna moth.
this sort of It's still really crude, but
It'll be there.
yeah. And yeah, definitely there'll be some things growing in the cracks. A little moss, definitely on the tree. That's probably the best place for stuff to grow here. So there'll be some mosses here. Yeah.
So before we sign off, I would ask the audience: did you learn anything today? Was it fun watching sculpting?
Yeah,
Is there
and
any,
how's the speed in terms of like? Would you prefer that I try and get as many details roughed out, or focus more on fine detail and particular things?
Yeah,
That's
let
all
us know.
Good to know. Yeah.
We want to, we want this Twitch channel to grow and be the sort of thing that our community is excited about. So let us know.
Lowhold learns that he has to get some of these pieces.
Yeah,
This is true.
these are facts, true facts. Any other learnings? All right. And then what's our next stream?
Our next
is
stream
Tuesday?
is next week on Tuesday. Hamster's going to be doing a war painting stream.
What time is that?
Let me look.
Yeah. And where does that schedule live?
That schedule lives on our website, but we're also going to be posting it on Mondays, and we're going to have a image on our offline screen, so it doesn't just say we're offline. It will now say the schedule.
What's upcoming?
But the warband painting next week starts at 6 p.m., and it's going to be Hamster, and it's going to be right before we start doing the real nitty-gritty war games.
And what's he? Do you know what he's painting next week?
Corvus Cobalt, I believe.
Ooh,
The
and
cool
yet that's
ones.
is what he's going to get defeated. He's going to be playing those guys against your.
If we have to rock paper scissors it, maybe he'll win. But if he just listens to me screaming, I'm definitely getting those pieces.
Oh, so he's playing with the Unmade and you're.
Well, I'm not playing with the Corvus Cobalt. Do you know those pieces?
Yeah,
those are the coolest team.
Yeah, but he also said that was his favorite, so I don't know. You guys might have to fight.
We'll rock
Maybe
paper
that's a whole
scissors.
special, deciding who gets
Yeah.
to play what. Like, you'd be like, maybe you have
It's
to play
the
a game
first
to decide
hour
who
of the
plays the
stream
game.
where
Yeah.
we're just Midwestern nicing each other about no, you can have it, it's fine.
Midwestern nicing.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's
Yeah.
the next one. Hope you guys tune in.
Discord. Oh yeah, the schedule is also on the Discord. Feel free to join the Discord if you want to keep discussing or have more questions. Eli just joined it. We're gonna figure out what's wrong with it, but maybe he'll post photos of himself as a ferocious dinosaur.
Possibly.
Ooh, or a
if
picture
you-
of a chicken on your lap.
Or a
sculpting.
picture of a chicken. We
Or your
have one of
cat.
me as the like chicken Beastmaster Ranger with a chicken on my wrist.
Yes,
Definitely
that
have
one's around the office.
Yeah,
That's
so
a-
that
That's a good one.
that's Merowyn, I think. Yeah.
Well, thank you guys
Yeah.
thanks for tuning in.
Thanks everybody. Yeah.
Thanks for all the questions, and in a short 16 months, you have this piece in hand.
Yeah.
Something
Definitely.
like that.
Get any questions for me? Get in touch one way or the other. You can get me here.
Yeah,
on
Where can
Instagram
people
or-
find you on socials?
Probably the best place is Eli.j.alexander on Instagram.
What's the J stand for?
Jan. It's for my Polish background.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. And I'm at Nate Taylor on Twitter. NateTaylor. And we're Dwarven Forge everywhere.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see you guys. See you next week for some painting extravaganza. Oh, and what's happening next Thursday? What else do we have next week?
That is March Madness.
Oh, March Madness begins. Wargaming begins. All right, we'll see you guys later. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you had a good stream.
See you later.
Stream.